What's up? It's your boy, Let 'em Know Zo, back with another video. Today, I want to talk about a new Netflix docuseries called African Queens. It is a series that is executive produced and narrated by Jada Pinkett Smith. And it is a series about, you guessed it, African queens. Yeah, so basically it's about women who were in very authoritative positions in the Africa of antiquity. And basically it seems to cover all of their affairs and their positions, whether it be diplomatic relations with other countries inside or outside of Europe, slavery within Africa, combat and conflicts between different kingdoms and tribes and things of that nature. And yeah, lately this new series seems to be in the spotlight for rather negative reasons, because since the series is called African Queens, one African queen that we all know today and we're very familiar with is Cleopatra. She was the ruler of Egypt, or one of them, because I do believe that there were several queens of Egypt who went by the name of Cleopatra. I believe there were a few of them, don't quote me, but I do believe there were more than one. They were each other's successors. So there were generation after generation, back to back. So, yeah, basically with this series, it's a pretty close to real life series from what I can tell. I didn't watch through the entire thing, but I did do a little bit of research. I read up on it a bit. So, yeah, don't go crazy if I don't get every last detail right, because I didn't watch it, but I did my research. Like I said, I did a little bit of I watched some clips, things like that. So yeah, basically all of the queens in the series, the one that I just mentioned, obviously Cleopatra, and then also we have Queen Njinga and Queen Mbande. They are two other important figures in the show. What the reason seems to be that this show is getting backlash is that the three queens that I just mentioned are all portrayed as Black women. Mainly, the backlash about this fact is coming from the Egyptians of today, because being that they are now the ruling class of the nation, and a Netflix series about their nation does not seem to represent them, they are a bit offended, and they're definitely making their voices heard. I understand that there is a filmmaker over in Egypt who is actually working on an adaptation of African Queens of his own. I don't exactly remember what it's called, but it's obviously going to be something similar to the African Queens that has been produced by Jada Pinkett Smith. He's going to make his own iteration of it, and we'll see how close to reality that one is, but I don't know. In my last video, I mentioned Egypt as well. It's actually kind of funny because I didn't plan to make two videos back to back regarding Egypt, but it just so happens that Egypt seems to be very angry about things that are being said and things that are being produced regarding their nation that they don't agree with. And basically it all comes back to the fact that the people of ancient Egypt are African presenting people. Like they're dark skinned people. They had broad noses, full lips, woolly hair. Like that's just what African people looked like thousands of years ago, and there's no getting around that. And the that's obviously some sort of issue for the Egyptians of today because that's not what they look like. They don't all have the richly melanated skin, the dark eyes, the broad nose, the full lips, and the woolly hair. A lot of them are, as I mentioned in my previous video as well, many of them are mixed race Arabs. They have like lighter skin complexions, anywhere from like tan to like light brown, and I'm sure there are a fair amount of pale skinned Egyptians as well. For the most part, they still seem to have dark eyes and dark hair, but a lot of them have of course, this physical variation. They have various textures of hair, various eye colors, and facial phenotypes and things of that sort. So, seeing a black person in rulership, they probably feel that that doesn't particularly um, represent them. And so I guess by that token, they're going to have something to say about it. And what they have to say is not exactly positive. So, yes, these queens in the series, African queens, are all represented as black women. And that is more likely than not the reality of the situation. So I'm honestly curious to see what this Egyptian filmmaker is going to come out with when he releases his adaptation of the Egyptian rulers of antiquity, because from what I can tell, everything seems to be somewhat accurate in the series African Queens, produced by Jada Pinkett Smith. So it's kind of strange that well, I guess it's not really strange because they want to see themselves in the history of their nation. But the thing is, the people in Egypt today are not the same people who were there thousands of years ago. But yeah, basically, I have a few qualms with the movie. Not the movie, the series. Excuse me. Um, yeah, it seems like the queens they are characterized in very certain, very peculiar ways. It seems that the move I keep saying the movie, the series seems to be politicized to a degree. Um, of course, there has been a very clear statement that the men, women, and children of ancient Egypt are all black people. So yes, and then the Egyptian pharaohs, excuse me, were obviously black men. But as the series talks about the various dealings that ancient Egypt had with the European powers of old, um, naturally they were in a headspace of conquest. They were not exactly trying to be allies with Egypt. Rather, they were trying to conquer it and make it a possession or a colony of their own. So, with a mentality like this, naturally they're going to be aiming at the leadership of Egypt. And if that's the case, then who else would they be after besides, of course, the Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt? So his life is in danger, and I'm not sure if they actually wind up taking his life in the series. I think they do because the focus is on the African queen, so basically the woman who would take his place in the wake of his death and basically become Pharaoh of Egypt as a woman. Um, I feel any leader, of course, should have particular qualities that are necessary to lead people and especially to lead a nation. But these characteristics are not exactly feminine, in my opinion. Leaders typically seem to be rather stoic, calculating, calm. They have exceptional foresight and planning ability. Um, and that's not to say that women can't have these abilities. It's just that I think most people, if asked what are the common traits and characteristics of women today, those few features that I just said are not what would come to mind to most people when describing women. Um, there was also a point in the series where I heard women or the woman who was the pharaoh being described as a king, and I honestly couldn't help but cringe when I heard that because it took me straight back to the movie that just came out, I believe, this past year, 2022, Woman King, which was centered around the tribe of Dahomey, I believe. Um, and it's just, it seems that with that kind of characterization of these black women or these African women, they're trying to, it seems they're trying to push some sort of agenda or paint this image of black slash African women as being masculine and stoic and strong and all these characteristics typical of men. And I can't say that I'm particularly fond of this kind of flipping the script, if you will, this masculinization of women and the effeminization of men, putting them in inferior roles and kind of having them take a back seat to everything that the woman does, and the woman being in the primary position and the man being in the support position. It just kind of seems like they're flipping these gender roles on their head, and that doesn't seem to be happening for anybody except black people or African people, whichever term you prefer. Um, I don't really, I don't really think that I'm a fan of those themes, but I mean, to be fair, as a ruler of a nation, I guess you can't really be too concerned about your femininity or being pretty or attractive or things of that nature because of course you have bigger responsibilities. You need to look after a people, you need to lead a nation. So I guess it can be forgiven if being pretty is the last thing on your mind because you literally have people to care for, which I guess that in that way can sort of be seen as a feminine characteristic because caring for people, nurturing, I believe that falls right in line with female nature. So at least they have that as saving grace, if nothing else. But yeah, Egyptians are really not happy about all these all these films and statements being made about their nation and them being basically portrayed as black people, which they were, even though it may not necessarily look like that today. Of course, there are still black people in Egypt today, black Egyptians, but I'm pretty sure that they're not the ones running the show over there these days. Uh, yeah, so I just wanted to give my 2 cents on that whole series. I think I'm actually gonna have to watch it. I might actually make a follow-up video expressing my opinions on everything that I've seen up to the point where you know they're releasing episodes. I'm not sure how often they're releasing episodes, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna give it a watch, see what I think about it, give a more in-depth video, and yeah. So it's your boy, Let Him Know Zoe. Like, comment, subscribe. share the video. I'm out.